Okay, welcome to Riverbridge's first virtual fundraiser called Find Your Voice. My name is Mary Cloud. I am the Assistant Director for Riverbridge, working primarily with fundraising, community outreach, grant writing, and staff support. This past year, we have had to shift and try new things, and we hope to bring the community a fundraiser that represents Riverbridge's mission and cause. With our selection of workshops this month, we hope to inform you, inspire you, bring out your creativity, and possibly entertain you. Now, as a nonprofit, raising funds and donations is a yearly requirement. We are proud to have the assistance and support of many local businesses. So please consider these places of businesses for your next needs.
Ace Hardware of Carbondale is proud to serve the Roaring Fork Valley for over 20 years. Our in-house specialists are prepared to lend their expertise and experience to your next project. From hardware to backyard grilling, your neighborhood Ace is the one-stop shop to make your day easier. Helping you is our most important thing to do today. Serving the Valley for over 40 years and 3 generations strong, Roaring Fork Furniture is here to stay. Their 10,000 square foot showroom is located at 2424 South Glen Avenue, just south of Alpine Bank. Don't have time to stop by? You can tour the store from the comfort of your own home with their virtual showroom, which you'll find at roaringforkfurniture.com. They have new inventory arriving daily, so don't wait any longer to turn your house into your dream home.
If your mortgage advisor hasn't given you an annual mortgage review, then you need to listen to this message because it could potentially change your financial future. An annual mortgage review analyzes where you could save money on your mortgage and builds strategies for retirement, college savings, and future real estate investments. If you haven't had an annual review, then schedule a consultation with me today and we'll start seeing what options are available for you.
Now, as a nonprofit, with our fundraiser, we are hoping to reach a new audience of people that are not aware of Riverbridge and what our services are all about. So I'd like to take a few moments just to educate you on the services that Riverbridge provides our community. Bridge, we are a nationally accredited child advocacy center. We are a calm, neutral facility. We work with law enforcement and human services. All of our referrals actually come from law enforcement or human services. So parents or concerned adults can't just call and make an appointment to come by and speak with or use any of our services. They have to come through Department of Human Services or law enforcement. All of our services are free. So mental health, medicals, victim advocacy, help with the legal system, that is all free. Why use a child advocacy center? With child advocacy centers, the child just has to come to one location and to meet with all these people, rather than having to go down to the police station and talk with a police officer or another adult, the district attorney, or then have to travel and go to a medical and then figure out where to go for mental health therapy if required. So they just have to come to one location and they get all of their services and needs met. So it is with that being able to come to one location, a lot of anxiety and fear is reduced. So that way the child can start to feel comfortable, and then that leads to the healing process as well. And also here with us is Kelly Hill, and I'd like to have her explain her role within Riverbridge. Kelly?
Thank you, Mary. And I loved that video. It really looked like Riverbridge. That was really awesome. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting us and being here, as well as Kyle for doing this. Really cool. I am one of a group of nurses that are either contracted with Riverbridge or actually work for Riverbridge, and we provide medical services. And every child that comes to Riverbridge and every family is offered a visit with a nurse that has gone through specialized training to work with kids who have been abused or neglected, and provide some individual, very specialized medical care. And it might not be anything too out of the norm of like a well child check, but sometimes just reassuring that child that they are normal, that they are not broken, that they are not damaged, that no one is going to be able to tell that they were abused or assaulted, can be incredibly therapeutic and healing for that child. Children, are children. They don't have the ability to necessarily process all the information that we as adults have sometimes in regard to being victims of crimes. And so all kinds of things can swirl around in their heads about their bodies. So it's just a great opportunity to sometimes just meet with them and talk to them and talk to their families. We don't force anybody to do anything. There's nothing that's painful. It's really just a therapeutic meeting with a nurse, sometimes an exam, sometimes STD testing, maybe some pregnancy testing, or just referrals to other providers in the community. So it's just a really awesome way to connect with kids, to reassure them about their bodies. So,
great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. We have an adult program too that is under the umbrella of Riverbridge. So we also see adults who have been sexually assaulted. So it's really an awesome, I'm so fortunate to get to do what I do.
Great. And if anyone has any questions for Kelly and I, you may use the chat feature to type your question, and we'll try and get back to you at the end of this workshop, either by email or even address the question on the chat. So before I introduce our workshop host, first a bit of Zoom 101. At the moment, you're all muted, and if your video is on or video is off, that is fine. This workshop, you might want to have your video on so Kyle can see you and see your signing. But you may want to also pin the host so that his video is the main focus on your screen and not the other attendees. So to do so, you just move your cursor up to the corner of our host, Kyle, and 3 dots should appear. If you click on them and you select pin video, then his video is going to be the one that is featured for you. So that way you can focus more on him, more on our speaker. If you have any questions during the time, you can also just chat and I will try to address them as well. So now on to our main focus tonight. We have with us Kyle Larson. He was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. He began signing in 2008 by taking ASL classes at the University at Buffalo. After volunteering at St. Mary's School for the Deaf, he obtained an internship working with elementary children and is hired full-time in the residential department and as a teacher's assistant and coach. Kyle received his master's at Gallaudet University in interpretation translation, where he focused on interpreting for deaf athletes. He assisted with the foundation of the first all-deaf men's rugby club in the United States. He found his way to the Aspen Camp for the deaf, working as the staff interpreter, and most recently working with a student enrolled in the Roaring Fork School District. So thank you, Kyle, for being here and providing us with the opportunity to learn some American Sign Language. So please take it away.
Thank you. That saves me a little bit of talking instead of talking about myself. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Real quick, just to follow up on a couple of things that Mary said, when we do start signing a little bit here, I would appreciate, your camera's on so we can see your faces and also see your hands moving and everything like that. Because if we were all deaf people, nobody's camera would be off. Everybody's camera would be on. So our hands are our voices for today. And I got to say, Riverbridge, seeing the picture now, I got to applaud Riverbridge because they had reached out to me years and years ago proactively to have an interpreter in their pocket just in case they ever needed it. They didn't have a client. Is that the correct word you would use?
Yes, client.
Yes. So that was great. And it's really tough for deaf folks to get mental health. Yeah, I mean, we know mental health is tough in general, and you add that extra layer of difficulty if you're deaf, and to find good quality interpreters in the mental health field who have a background in maybe counseling or anything like that, it's very challenging, but it's also very necessary. And I've done some jobs that have been really, really heavy, and it's very important that you have a team too, because there's a lot of nuances that we might miss, you know what I mean, as an interpreter, and it's important to have that backup and that partnership with a counselor. That being said, we're probably not going to talk too much about mental health today. I didn't know how many participants we were going to have. I didn't really know where to start. Everybody's on a different level, so I'm hoping I've got a little bit of, there's something for everybody here, is what I'm trying to say. So pretty much to start, what I will do is I might be signing and speaking at the same time. This is not necessarily it's accepted, but it's not necessarily appropriate because when you SimCom, you tend to drop the sign language grammar in favor of the English grammar. So when you SimCom, the deaf people still miss out on some things. As like right now, my English, I'm speaking English grammatically, but my sign language is blah, right? So there's different kinds of ASL in our country, and there's different kinds of sign languages all over the world. It's not a universal language. For the same reason, there's not a spoken universal language, Yeah. And so I will operate in what's called a pidgin language, which is somewhere in between. It's not an official language. So I borrow things from ASL, and I'll also borrow from signed exact English, which tends to follow English grammar, word for word. That comes into some problems when we're translating and interpreting. I don't know how much, who is bilingual or what, but there's a literal translation, and then there's what's called an idiomatic translation. And we try to fly in that idiomatic area, right? Because it's going to be more accurate in the second language. So brief history of ASL. pretty much there was this guy named Gallaudet, as Mary mentioned before. That's the school, my alma mater. This man had a neighbor who had a deaf daughter, and he was passionate about her education. So the guy took a trip to the UK, and the United Kingdom was still a little upset about the revolution and the War of 1812. So they kind of sent him packing. So he moved to France and went to a French deaf school, started learning French Sign Language. And so American Sign Language and French Sign Language are 70% similar, more or less, which is pretty cool. And so Gallaudet went over to France, he learned sign language, came back to America, started up the first deaf school, and the rest is history. So that's how sign language came to be in the States. And here it blended with Native American Sign Language, some Mexican Sign Language. And so it has some unique signs. And of course, culturally, it's a little different as well, which is fun. So as I said before, sign language is deaf people's voice, right? Now, not every deaf person is going to be the same. Some people talk, some people can talk and choose not to. They'll turn their voice off. Other people, kind of are somewhere in between. But it's really important that we give them the option that they pick the voice for themselves, right? And we respect that decision. So, yeah.
I have one question that came up. Catherine wants to know, what is the significance of the year 1880 for ASL? She says, I hear it was a big year for ASL, something about that year, them banning it in America.
I don't know about banning in America. That late 1800s was important because they had a world deaf meeting, and deaf people from all over the world came together and met. They kind of, and it was the first time that ever happened. And they got together and chatted about, deaf education, their lives, just everything in general. Specifically 1880, I don't know off the top of my head. Around the turn of the century, people like Alexander Graham Bell had a different opinion about how to teach deaf kids, adults in general. He was very focused on oralism and speech. So that's what Alexander Graham Bell wanted. So they thought the way to knowledge and intelligence was the English language, right? So they forced deaf people to not sign, kind of put their hands in their pockets, forced them how to speak and read lips and all that other kind of stuff. So it kind of sucked, to put it bluntly, because what they're doing is by putting, having them sit on their hands, you're taking away their voice, right? You're taking away that option of using sign language. And kind of going off the rails here, while I was in grad school, they released this study that was fascinating because people had the hypothesis that ASL was going to have, like, if we were to analyze your brain, right, as we're signing, people thought because it was visual and manual, different parts of the brain would be firing than as opposed to a speaking and listening person. And what they found is that the same parts of the brain were firing, which means ASL is a legitimate language. Like, why we continue to oppress it is strange to me. But so that's really cool too. Yeah, let me get my notes here.
Can you also talk briefly, what made you passionate about ASL? How did you get first started with being an interpreter? And
good question. So as you mentioned, I started, I was picking up some ASL classes. At that time, I had changed majors. I didn't have a path. I saw a presentation about interpreting and I was like, potential job. And it seems that it had some security. It seemed like the money was good until I decided to work in a public school. But around the time I started working at the deaf school in Buffalo, New York is when I became passionate. At first, I worked in the residential program and I had like my group of boys and they were probably 8 to 12. And, you're pretty much big brother, your dad, part-time of the week, so at some point during that, I became very passionate about providing access, really. And I think I've always had that passion for education and coaching. So it just kind of made sense to continue to be involved in schools, really. Yeah. So if you, yeah, that's totally cool. If questions pop up, I don't mind, being interrupted. That's totally cool. Or if we want to wait until the end, I don't care. I was planning on having like an open question and answer time. So if we want to do that, but if it's the questions like related to what I'm talking about, I think that's cool to interrupt, and that's fine.
Sounds good. We'll put questions like that, open-ended kind of questions towards the end, and let's get started.
Cool. So pretty much what I thought would be good is basic conversation stuff and some local signs or emergency signs, or really if you bump into a deaf person on the street, what are you going to be talking about, right? Or, in our valley, we have a lot of people visiting. So they're going to want to know where to go, directions, restaurants, all this kind of stuff. So I thought that would be good to talk about that kind of vocabulary instead of just all sitting here practicing our ABCs, right? Because y'all can practice your finger spelling, your ABCs anytime. I used to do it while I was driving, which is maybe, I don't know if it's safe or not, but like, you see a street sign and I'm finger spelling. I would sit in the bathroom on the toilet and read the shampoo bottle, right? And just practice finger spelling, all that stuff. And that really helps with, the flow of language and your prosody, because now you're practicing letters together, right? When you spell a word, it's not always an ABCD order. So how letters match up and work together changes. So it's really important to practice your finger spelling. And really, if you don't know a sign, you always have finger spelling to back up, right? So if you can't learn or you don't know how, at least you got the ABCs. And if you meet a deaf person, you can finger spell it, right? Other strategies, texting and email are great. If you don't have an interpreter, for example, and you want to call a deaf person, just text or email. It's always better. Not all deaf people are the same too. So ask what their preference is, right? Like I said before, some people were raised orally and don't sign at all, right? But are still deaf. Reading lips, don't depend on that. Reading lips is not even close to 100% accurate. I challenge you guys after this to turn on the news, put on mute, and don't turn on the captions and see how well you do reading lips, right? It's impossible. So don't think, oh, a deaf person, they know how to read lips. It's not true. I have met one deaf person who maybe could get like 90% of what was said, and that was the best, right? And it was impressive, don't get me wrong, but yeah, most often deaf people don't want pity. They don't want help. I mean, they might need help, but not in the sense that they need to have their hand held or spoon fed. Do you know what I'm saying? They just want to be treated like everybody else. And obviously it's going to be hard because they're deaf and they have different needs, but that's what they want. They want you to approach them as a peer, as an equal. And that's why if you don't know sign language, writing notes is the best way, because it puts both the deaf person and the hearing person on an even playing field, right? Because you both are literate. So you're both reading and writing these notes, passing back and forth. That's a great way to communicate if we don't know sign. Other things that I sat down with my student, I was like, what pisses you off? And we're going to tell them what not to do. So what she said was eye contact is very important. Look them in the face, speak regularly. You don't have to speak louder, right? The louder you speak is not going to make them a hearing person. So just talk normally, right? And they will, if they can read lips, great. Some people will over-articulate everything and they just look kind of dumb. So just speak normally. They're used to it, right? And also, sometimes this is hard, but if a deaf person can speak, sometimes we forget that they can't hear, right? So just remember that they're still deaf, even if they can speak, right? They also don't like I kind of mentioned before, that pittiness, you know, like sometimes my student will meet someone and she'll tell them that, oh, she's deaf or hard of hearing. And they go, oh, I'm sorry. Why? Right? They don't want that kind of pity. One of the worst things you can say to a deaf person is that if they missed something, you go, oh, it's not important. That happens to them all day, every day. They are perpetually missing out, and it's heartbreaking, right? So try to communicate what happened or what the joke was. You know, at family parties, often they get left out. There's a funny joke and they're like, what was said? And they're, oh, don't worry about it, it's not important.
Oh, shoot.
But that socialization is, right? That socialization is very important. So the key is patience, right? And don't get frustrated, because if you're frustrated, the deaf person is probably twice as frustrated. So patience is really key. It's also important to know that 90% of deaf kids are born to hearing parents, and only 30% of those parents actually learn ASL. So linguistic delay is very common among the deaf population. And of course, because of that linguistic delay, there's going to be other issues as well, especially related to education. So that's kind of that spiel. And do we have any questions thus far? Well, I have a nice little break right here. What's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Try to get mine. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm like thinking of a million questions, but I'll just pick one. You know, I think there's some similarities, but I want to know what you think, to, you know, the older population who have become hard of hearing. Now, they're not deaf, of course, but, you know, I think we make some really awful assumptions, and I'm just thinking of the things that I know I've done, and I want to correct those immediately. So thank you. Anything in particular, though, for like a healthcare visit, like a medical visit? Is there anything that, I mean, obviously it's the same things, but anything else that you could add to that as far as conducting a medical visit?
So would the deaf participant come to you?
Yeah, I also, well, yeah, sure.
I don't know if you guys do home visits or anything like that too.
No. Yeah, they would come to us. And of course it would, you know, potentially be under the awful circumstance of a sexual assault, a physical.
Deaf interpreter to kind of figure out specifically what they're talking about, because they might not be using real signs. It might be home signs or even gesture kind of made up. Basically
like a whole cultural piece, right?
Right. And that's huge too. So it's kind of like the Hispanic population here. How often does a kid who doesn't know English, they go, oh, you're in a special needs class? And it's like, no, he's not a special needs kid. He just speaks Spanish and doesn't know English. It happens so often. And it's really sad. But that would be my suggestion for you. Definitely looking into a deaf interpreter for more, you know, serious cases. But it really depends on the person too.
Mary, I'm assuming we've got that set up, right?
Yes, we have the ability to, if we need a sign language interpreter, there is actually a grant program that will provide a ASL interpreter.
Correct. That is called RISP.
Yes.
RISP. It's great service. Yeah, I actually have to contact them. I want them to pay for one of my certifications, so we'll see. Cool. Any other questions so far? All right, let's dig in. We're going to do a little bit of vocab right now.
I think Catherine was raising her hand. Were you raising your hand, Catherine?
Oh, no, I was just trying to sign no. But thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kelly.
So we're going to do some vocab. I'm going to do my best to go slow. I was kind of rushing that beginning part just because we kind of had a late start. I don't want to hold you guys up. So I want to go over everything one time, and then maybe we can review. I'll let you guys ask specific signs if they relate to our kind of theme here about Roaring Fork Valley, emergency, or I also have a lot of typical mountain adventure fun things that we do here. Yeah, so I mean, when in doubt, always fingerspell, right? That's your backup, which is super nice. Practice the alphabet, fingerspelling. Like I said, do that as much as you can. To start, who wants to guess how to say hi? Hello. Real easy, right? Some signs are really intuitive. We don't have to think too hard about them. So hi works, and you know what? It's the same thing as bye. It works really well. You give them a little salute, you can wave. It all works. It's all gravy. Now, what's up? With your middle fingers bent down, you're kind of coming right on the top of your chest here. What's up? What's up? Typically in ASL, we're kind of lazy here in America, so we tend to drop our weak hand and just sign with our dominant hand. So one hand works too. Now, whatever hand you write with is going to be your dominant signing hand. So I'm right-handed, which means I sign most of my stuff with my right hand. There are two-handed signs where you will need both hands, but it's very common in ASL that you're using one hand. In other sign languages, they use a lot more two-handed signs. So just something to be aware of. It's actually wild, like the UK and Britain. So if you've been studying your ABCs, we know that the vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. In British Sign Language, it's A, E, I, O, U. So yeah, it is weird. Like I could go to the UK and we could speak English fine, but interacting with a deaf person, I'd be like, I don't know. And then I could go to France and I could talk to a deaf person and like understand, but I don't know French. The language is crazy. It's awesome. Keep in mind, some of these signs that I'm going to be teaching you guys are regional signs. They are not widely accepted. Local deaf people have kind of made them up who have lived here. So like the sign for Aspen, for example, is this. And the reason why is because Aspen loves their aspen trees, and that's the sign for leaf.
Leaf.
Now I would sign leaf like this with my hand pointed up, but I would sign aspen down.
Oh.
So if I went over to the East Coast and I'm talking about aspen, they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? So you'd have to fingerspell aspen and then show them the sign for aspen. Now, with the internet and YouTube, it has been amazing for deaf culture because now all these signs we can share, right? So quickly and easily, whereas before, regional signs were very different. It's kind of like, think about how people talk in New York City versus how they talk in Texas, right? How we have verbal accents, we also have hand accents, right? So I was so happy to move away from Washington, D.C. because people sign so freaking fast there. It is much more chill on the West Coast. It's super nice. It's just like how they talk, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and start. I'm going to start with the towns of the valley. Then we're going to get into some locations, some playing, emergency, and yeah. And then we'll just open it up if you guys are curious about anything. So Glenwood Springs, often abbreviations are very big in sign language too. So if I was to abbreviate Glenwood Springs, it would be GWS, which is what we sign, GWS. Glenwood Springs.
What's G? What's
G.
G?
So with my index finger and my thumb, that's the letter G. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, right? W-S, Glenwood Springs, which is easy to remember too, right? If we know if we know the alphabet, we can take any town and so like, guess what Grand Junction is? G-J. Okay. And of course, I have some deaf friends who live in Grand Junction. I'm sure if I asked them what they sign for Grand Junction, they might have made up a sign for Grand Junction. So it really depends. So just keep that in mind that it's pretty local, if that makes sense. Carbondale with the letter C, Carbondale. And the reason why is because that's the sign for carbon. So Carbondale. Very clever. Right there on your neck. Basalt with your number 2 or your letter V hand shape. Basalt. This is the sign for salt. Again, very clever. So this is the sign for food, like the salt you would put on whatever, right? So in the context of our valley, I could be referring to basalt. Just keep in mind, people might confuse it with actual salt. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, is your refrigerator running? You better go catch it, right? Words can have the same word can have different meaning. Eligible is a spelling one. EJ is what I typically sign. Same with Willits. Just spell it out, W-I-L-L-I-T-S. Willits, beautiful. And we have Aspen, rifle. You're going to take the letter R, hold it like a gun, rifle. Okay. Newcastle is going to be N-C. Newcastle. Vale, typically if a word is like 4 letters or less, it's fingerspelled. So like even my name, I kind of forgot about that. There's like nicknames in deaf culture. And because my name is short, typically people just spell it, K-Y-L-E. So Vale is just V-A-I-L, Vale, V-A-I-L, Vale. Eagle.
Oh.
Kind of like you got your fingers pinched in here, like the beak. Eagle. And that works for the town, that works for the animal. Roaring Fork Valley. Roaring Fork. R-F. Everybody struggles with F. I don't know why. I don't know why. R-F for Roaring Fork Valley. So we're kind of making the shape of a valley with our hands right here, right? So you'd say Roaring Fork Valley. Up valley, down valley, just UV or DV. U, V, D, V. Up valley, down valley. Mountain. Start with your fists, holding together, close to your chest. Mountain. You're going up, kind of at an angle, just like the peak of a mountain. So the mountains. Ooh, Colorado, duh. There's a lot of signs for Colorado, and everybody signs it a little different. One of the older signs was, this is the sign for color. Like your colors, red, blue, whatever. And they would sign color, A-D-O, Colorado. That one has kind of died out. It's not that great. The newer sign, at least what I've been seeing from younger kids, is Colorado. So you're kind of taking the color and going out like that. Some people allude that to the recent legalization of a certain herb, Colorado. So a lot of the younger kids are signing that. I think like probably the best way to sign it is Colorado. Kind of like think of like the mountain range over your arm. This is the flat, the earth, Colorado. That's how I would sign it.
Kyle, can I interrupt you?
Go for it. I'm sorry, I missed. S2 or SV?
Snowmass Village.
Oh, Snowmass Village. Oh, I forgot about Snowmass. That one has a fun sign.
Oh.
Snowmass. That's supposed to be like, at least how I envision it is I imagine like the white peaks, the snow on the top of the mountain, right? Snowmass.
Okay. Thank you. I live in Snowmass Village, so.
You want to know? I forgot. It's not on my list.
So it has a special.
Snowmass has like its actual own sign.
Okay. Thank you.
Which is fun. I had something I wanted to say. Snowmass. Shoot. Mountain, Snowmass. Oh, this one's fun. So you're going to take your whole hand, not just a seat, your whole hand like that. That is the sign for Powder Day. Powder Day. Which is a very important sign here. Let's talk about fun. So 2 fingers together, like the letter U on top of your nose, down to 2 fingers down here, fun. Okay, fun. The sign for trail or adventure is this. So you kind of have your arm out like that with your 1 finger, which kind of represents a person. You're just going like that. Imagine a trail that you're walking on. So that could be adventure, trail. Yeah. Sign for river. This is the sign for water with the letter W on your chin. And all you're doing is saying river. Just imagine a wiggly stream, right? So water, stream. That's river. Rafting. With your 2 fingers like that and your thumb, you're making a boat rafting. So for white water, we would say this is the sign for white. White. Water. Rafting. Oh yeah, and you have to move like that too, because whitewater rafting is bumpy, right? That's the other thing with sign, which is so cool, is because, there's no, like if I was talking about chopping wood, there's no sign for chopping wood. I would literally show myself holding an axe and going to chop wood. So same thing, gesture works, fingerspelling, gesture, act it out. Imagine you're playing charades, honestly, right? That helped me figure things out in the beginning, kind of like, what is he talking about? So we can do that too. Kayaking. Someone take a guess at what kayaking is. There you go. Amy's got it. Right? Biking. Like you're pedaling a bike along. Biking, kayaking, hiking. With your number 3, these are supposed to represent your feet. Hike. Just kind of walking around. Now, what's cool with sign language is we can show the level of aggression, the aggression of the hike. So if it's a chill hike, we're hanging out, right? We're relaxed. But if aggressive, I'm like, oh my God. So if same with kayaking. If it was a pleasant ride, well, I just kayaked along. But if it was intense, you'd be like, oh my God. So that makes signing fun too. We can really emphasize some stuff. Biking, kayaking, hiking, rock climbing. Rock, climb. So we got our letter or our number 3, bent, climbing. Good stuff. Downhill biking. My favorite, skiing. So with the letter X, we're going to turn our hands upside down, skiing. Same thing, you know, cross country skiing, right? If you're one of those snowboarding people, snowboarding, flat, kind of my hands are bent like that, snowboarding. With the devil horns, camp. It's camping. If you want to talk about setting up a tent, you would sign tent, right? It's coming up. You're building the tent up and camping. Camping, we did adventure, snowboarding, mountains. Okay, now we're going to get into like more local stuff. It's a sign for local or regional. Restaurant, you're going to take the letter R, restaurant, on both sides of your mouth. So if someone's looking for something to eat, you're going to point them to a restaurant, right? We've got bar. So if you want to go to the bar, yep, there you go. We have restaurant, bar, hot springs. Hot springs. So if someone's looking, why do people come to Glenwood Springs, right? For the hot springs. So they might be signing that, or you can sign that to them. All right. Hospital. So we're gonna talk about some emergency. And for emergency, you just take the letter E, just wiggle it back and forth, emergency. So hospital.
Isn't that patient?
So this is with the letter H, you're going to do hospital, but with the letter P, patient. Patient. And it could be clinic. Typically any, clinic with the letter C. Sometimes that happens, they'll take a sign, and if there's something similar to it, they'll take the first letter and just apply that to the sign. So that's why, like nurses and doctors, they always had like a little patch there or whatever. So that's why it's on the arm. Hospital, Valley View. For Valley View, just do VV. Valley View, hospital. Hospital. So we did emergency, hurt. This is sign for hurt or injured. Although if someone's hurt, they're probably obviously hurt. We don't, so hurt or pain, injury, all those synonyms work for that sign. Ambulance. Woo! Like the lights on the ambulance. Emergency helicopter, police. So I've got like my whole hand bent. And this is supposed to be the badge. Some people will sign the letter C, either of those ways, cop, police. Okay. Firefighter, the big hat, firefighter. And then the sign for fire is fire. And really an important one is help. So help, thumbs up, flat hand, help. And what's cool about some verbs in sign language is they change how we move them. So this is a sign for help in general. But if I wanted to help you, I would start with the sign towards me and point it towards you. So I am helping you. If you were to help me, I would start towards you and bring it back to me and be like, can you help me? So that kind of movement of like, you are helping me. So that's another feature of ASL. That's kind of all the words I put down. We'll go over them again to practice. And if you guys have any questions, or if you think of a good one that pops up, go ahead, interrupt, type it in the chat. Mary Cloud's got us.
What is if you do the help up? Because I've seen that.
So like, it's just how people sign it. So like, if you notice, I kind of signed it like that. It's just another way to sign it. It's one of those regional differences. I learned help. Some other place, some other people learned help. So to me, there's not much of a difference.
What about like, okay? Is it thumbs up? Like, got it?
Yep. That's what's cool about ASL is it is integrated in our culture, right? So, if I have to see one more middle finger joke after I tell people that I do sign language, I might, explode. But those things still apply, right? So the thumbs up works. You okay? That's, are you okay? You okay? I tend to sign fine. Like, are you okay? So in general, this could be fine. You can answer what's up with this. Like, what's up? Fine. How are you? Fine. Like, and if you're going to ask the question, you have to use your face. You got to use your facial expressions because that's how intonation works in ASL. If I'm asking you a question, I tend to raise my voice at the end. So you're aware it's a question. Whereas I will be like, if I'm fine, I'm going, I'm fine. But if I'm asking if you're fine, I'm going, are you fine? So we have to show that with our face and our body language.
Kyle, how about the phrase need to evacuate in case of fire? Elizabeth had typed that one up. Need to evacuate in case of fire.
So you would sign fire. Escape. Get the heck out. So again, anytime you see, not always, but this represents a person. So I can be walking this way. I could be walking uphill, walking downhill, just kind of moving around, right? So in my open 5 hand, my fingers in between my index and my middle finger, escape, get out. Now, if you were talking to a group of people, there's not just one person, there might be 2, 3, or 4. So that's like everybody get the heck out.
Oh.
Is that clear, Elizabeth? Cool.
I had a question, Kyle.
Sure.
I was thinking when I go to a foreign country, I try to learn hello, how are you, what's your name? Just conversational.
And I have that written down. I just forgot it.
Okay.
we can jump back, but we know what's up. And what's up in ASL works kind of differently, whereas in hearing culture in English, if I ask you what's up, you tend to say nothing, right? In ASL, they can respond with nothing, or they can respond with fine or good. So what's up kind of behaves a little differently in deaf culture. We got hi, my. So the open hand is a possessive. So if I'm talking about your name, I'm going to point it at you, yours, or mine. And then the sign for name with your letter H, name. Tapping it twice. Boop, boop. Your dominant hand's on the top. Typically, if you have a 2-handed sign, your weak hand is going to be stationary. Your dominant hand is going to be the one that's moving. And we only tap this twice. You don't want to go like that because then you kind of look crazy. They're going to be like, okay. So my name is Kyle. Does everyone know the ABCs? So practice. You should know your name at least, right? And words like is and other articles don't really exist in sign language. So I really just signed my name, Kyle. And that's a grammatically correct sentence in ASL. Now, if I was to be asking you what your name is, keep in mind that ASL tends to follow French grammar. So it's a little flipped around. So I'm really asking your name what? So in English, we say, what's your name? In ASL, you're signing your name what? And a question word will always end in utterance in ASL. You never really start with a question word. It usually comes at the end of a sentence. Okay, so now we know my name, your name, and then practice your finger spelling. How are you? Kind of cupped. You can see my hands kind of like cupped like that. Again, weak hand is stationary. Your dominant hand is moving. How? How? And that's just the sign for how. So if I was just how, how. And then for how are you, it flows really kind of smoothly to how are you. Remember that verb to be doesn't really exist in ASL, so it's just how are you? And your hands should touch. How are you? And you can respond with I'm fine. You can respond with good, good, or bad. I am bad. And there's, as you know, you can respond in a lot of different ways to that question, right? But fine is very common. And then the greetings and goodbyes are the same. Thank you is the same as good. So good, thank you, it's all context. And then you're welcome. It starts on your chin, kind of a flat hand. You're welcome. Cool? Great. We want to go through this list again and practice? All right. I'm going to go through the list. I'm going to say the word and I'm going to watch you guys see how you remember, and I'll help if we struggle, okay? Because that was a lot of vocab to throw at you day one within like the course of, I don't know, a half an hour. All right, let's try it. Glenwood Springs. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Elizabeth, your W and your F are switched. Look, F, W, like, if you want to get even more confused, it's also the number 9 and the number 6. Good job, Glenwood Springs, GWS. All right, what about Carbondale? There we go, same sign for carbon. Almost like you're choking yourself, but not really. There's still a space between your hand and your neck. Basalt.
Oh, it was the salt.
Oh, we're so close. Yeah, we got it. We got it. Basalt.
Oh,
Basalt. Well done. Eljabel. Spell it out, right? E-L. Mary Cloud has a cheat sheet. She's got the alphabet in front of her. That's not fair. Willits. I should probably just help you guys out with this one because it's all spelling. W-I-L-L-I-T-S. It's another thing to note when you have a double letter. So like in Willits, there's 2 L's. You tend to start spelling a word towards the center of your body and work outwards.
oh.
So like I'll start W-I, and then with an L, you kind of bounce it. You go L-L, L-L. So W-I-L-L-T-S. So it's kind of cool as you spell, you kind of go like this. It would look weird if you went the other way, and you don't want to like go forward unless like you actually are yelling at somebody, because if you were to spell like that, they'd be like, whoa, why are you so aggressive? So it's just real easy, just like that. Cool. Aspen, that one's fun. Aspen. Reflay, rifle. Rifle. With our little handgun. Grand Junction. Good. G, J, G, J. Newcastle. N, we got some N. There we go. N, C. N, C. Newcastle. Vale. V-A-I-L. Good. You got to be a really good speller in order to know sign language. It's a bummer. Eagle. Close, close. There you go. Eagle. Just your index and your thumb. Eagle. Roaring fork. R for roaring. F for fork. RF. All right, now we're going to get into some more visual ones, so you guys should do better. Valley. Good, we got it, valley. Mountain. Mountain.
Mountain.
Mountain. Worst comes to worst, make it up. You're like, you know, those things over there that do this, right? Colorado. I accept multiple answers. Good. Good.
I like this one.
Colorado. Me too. River. Good. If you forget the W for water, it's really okay. They'll probably understand what you're talking about. Fun. Good. We were all so close. If I combined all of you into one sign, we had it. Fun. Fun. And just on a little side note, you're going to take those same fingers. If you want to sign funny, like that's funny, funny. And make sure you flick your nose too. Cool. White water.
No.
White water. Good job. White water. What about rafting? Yeah, we got it. Great. I typically sign with just my index and my middle finger. But if you've got a big fat boat and you want to use all your hands, it's a better descriptor of, you know, your heavy boat. Kayaking. You guys were really good at this one. About biking. Is that Catherine? My fingers are sore. Welcome to my life. We did biking. What about hiking? Hiking's kind of tough. Catherine's really close. Remember, it's the weird one. If you wanted to use your whole hand like that, that's totally fine too. It's probably going to be easier for you to remember because your foot kind of looks like that, right? Skiing. Oh, so close. Think about the letter X. Skiing. Good, good. What about snowboarding? You guys are great. This is a lot of vocab to be thrown at you at once, and you're doing really well. Snowboarding. Snowboarding. Adventure or trail. Good. Catherine got it. Amy, you were so close. Adventure or trail. Good. Camping or tent. Close. We're all so close. Camp. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. What about help? Sign for help. Kelly. Help. Kelly needs help. Hospital. With the letter H. Good. We got it. Restaurant. Good stuff. Restaurant. Bar. I bet you all know that one. Yeah, you all remembered that one. Bar. Hot springs. Let's do hot. Hot springs. Springs.
How's that different from new? Is it new?
So new, my hands are like this, new. And this one I'm coming up. Like I've got like, I imagine, it's also the sign for plant. So imagine like a plant potter and your plant's coming up to say hello. Spring, flower or plant, it all kind of works. And then new is, or fresh, if you're talking about like food or something like that. Police. Policia. Good. What about firefighter? The letter B. Elizabeth's good one. Escape. Evacuate. Good, Mary. Good. Boo. You're getting the heck out. Hurt or injured or pain. Good. Hurt. This sign is cool too because location changes the meaning. So if I have a headache, I will sign a headache. If I have a pain in my shoulder, I'm going, ooh, that hurts. So this is the sign for in general, but if you want to talk about a specific pain, you would use that sign and point to it. So like, you know, on my knee, I would go, oh, my knee hurts. That kind of thing. Great. Well done. That's tough, especially for, you know, you guys are new. That's not easy. So well done.
How do you say well done, great, excellent?
Good job. Good job.
Or this way.
And we all know how to applause, right? We don't clap our hands in ASL. We jazz hands for life. That's pretty much what I got. I was going to wrap things up with an open question answer. I was going to give you guys some resources, another way to keep your sign language continuing. So I can run down that list real quick. Yeah, let's just do that. You know, the best way to, if you're bilingual, you know, the best way to learn a language is to socialize, which is going to be really tough here because there's not a lot of deaf folks in the Valley. There is Aspen Camp for the Deaf. I just talked to one of the board members 2 weeks ago, and they have a couple of volunteer days coming up, and they're trying to get some deaf folks there. So if you want to pull up Aspen Camp's website and volunteer for a day, you might be able to practice your sign language with some deaf folks there while doing some community service. There's a Roaring Fork ASL club on Facebook. So on Facebook, if you just search Roaring Fork ASL, it should pop up. They were meeting like once a month, I think, before COVID. I don't know what their plan is now. I haven't kept up on that. I probably should. CMC has some classes. I know the teachers there. They're both really great. One thing, you know, there's apps too. There's dictionary apps you can download. There's finger spelling apps too that are awesome for beginners. You download the finger spelling app and it will finger spell a word for you, and then you have to select what word they spelled. So that's going to help you practice watching sign language, because that's almost more important, you know, that's equally as important as producing sign language, right? So you've got these apps available. There's a ton. There's so much on YouTube now. It's wild. The one thing I got to tell you to be careful about on YouTube is make sure that it's a deaf person and it's a qualified deaf person. And the reason I say that is because, you know, here I am, a hearing person teaching you. There's a lot of people out there who are not qualified to teach. So just be careful. And some of them look very professional, but they're not good sources. So just be aware of that when you're searching on YouTube videos. Yeah, if you find yourself in a big city like Denver, they'll have Deaf Night Out or Deaf Nightlife. And same thing, once a month, they all meet up. They pretty much invade and take over a bar and hang out. And so if you find yourself there, then that's a great place to practice. That's where I learned, or that's where I solidified a lot of my skills, was not in the classroom, but just hanging out with deaf folks, which is a challenge here, which is a bummer, but you know, I have some pen pals that we video chat here and there, so I can keep my skills up to snuff. Yeah, that's kind of, there's really cool things happening right now in ASL. There's some podcasts that are out there where it's deaf people and they have interpreters, and so they interpret, and you can watch the podcast and watch them sign, or you can listen to the podcast via interpretation. There's news now fully in ASL. One of them is the Daily Moth. It's the anchor is great. There's a website called DPAN, and they have a ton of videos. They're actually starting to do sitcoms. They have deaf musicians on there. They're making music videos. They have a soap opera now too, which is hilarious. It's so bad. But so it's really cool. And it's all out, you know, everything's online, and you could probably find it for free, which is really exciting. That's all I got, really, you know. So it's up to you, open to you, y'all now. We can keep talking. We can take a nap. I'm sure you're all overwhelmed.
Remind me of thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome. No problem.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Good job, Amy.
Okay, that was great.
And thank you for joining. This was a lot of fun. I'm happy to kind of spread the word. It's good to see you again, Elizabeth. It's been a minute. But thanks so much, guys. And I appreciate the opportunity, of course, Mary and Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Kyle, for again teaching us how to use our voice through our American Sign Language. I certainly am going to keep my cheat sheet around to practice. Thank you. Well, this wraps up our evening's workshop, but I do have some closing comments. In the chat, I have placed a few links. Since this was our first virtual workshop and fundraiser, we'd love to have your feedback, because maybe this may be a future in-person event for our organization. So please go check out that survey for us for a second. If you're willing to give a bit more, if you're in a position to give a little bit more, we'd love your donation at our site, coloradogives.org. And we also have a silent auction coming up with some themed gift baskets. Summer fun, doctor's orders, Roaring Fork Eats, and a lot more fun stuff. So go ahead and check that out. That's going to be on all month long. So you can make your bids early and later and all of that. So we hope to see you again for another workshop. Our next one is actually this tomorrow evening, Owning Your Story. With Ashley Malden, and she's going to be using the teachings of Brene Brown, if you are familiar. So she's going to do an introductory course to the teachings of Brene Brown, and that is tomorrow at 6 p.m. So again, thank you all for coming this evening and supporting Riverbridge, and we hope you were inspired and definitely informed about the American Sign Language community. This was excellent, Kyle. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.